Hello and welcome to the Book Bunch. My name is Sam. It is so great to have you guys here for another video. I hope that you stick around to the end and that you enjoy it. If you do, please give it a like, and if you want to be notified of more content from me, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. So today's video is all about Christian fiction books that I think are really phenomenal. There's one in there that's like kind of average, but I think that's possibly just because it's not like I'm not the targeted age range, so that could be affecting it, but I still would definitely recommend it to you guys. But yeah, I've read recently some really good Christian fiction books, and I wanted to share them because I don't know if you have the same problem as me, but it can be hard to find really good Christian fiction books that compete with the secular fiction out there that is just as good, because sometimes it can be hard to find something that is clean but also really captivating and is really a 5 out of 5 stars and all of that kind of stuff, because unfortunately sometimes Christian fiction can just be a bit tacky. So I was very pleasantly surprised with this stack of books that I'm about to show you, because I think it was all really good, and I do definitely recommend to you guys. The first one I'm going to talk about today is the Star Wars saga. This is quite a extensive set of books. I know there is 4 that are definitely released, and then I believe there's another 4 on the way or something like that. It's quite substantial. Also, if you can hear noise in the background, I'm sorry, but the road outside is rather busy at the moment, so just ignore that if you can. But yeah, so the Star Wars trilogy, well, not trilogy, saga, is really good. I have only read the first one so far, but I am going to stop this video and go read the second one, because the first one has proven to be really good, and it kind of leaves it in a place where like the story isn't finished. Like it's almost set up kind of like a TV series, which like is probably why it's got like episode 1, episode 2 and all of that, because it kind of ends where you're still definitely midway through the story, and if you want to know what happens, you have to keep going. It's that kind of thing. It's not like a normal trilogy or a normal series where sometimes you can read the first book and like leave it there. It's definitely not like that. You do need to read more if you're going to want to know what happens. It is so good. This is a Christian sci-fi series by Chuck Black, and I'm really enjoying it. It does give me very strong Brandon Sanderson vibes, especially his sci-fi series, the Cytonic trilogy or saga, I guess it is at this point, because there's already a 4th one being announced. So yeah, it's very similar. If you liked that, you'll probably like this, but this actually has like a Christian background to it, which is pretty cool. So it's set up to be a historical retelling, I guess, but like it's not our history, it's this fictional history retelling of this wild adventure and how the Raelian people have got to where they are now. So it's a dad telling this story to his daughter as like a nighttime, like bedtime story almost. And it is their, like they say it's a true story because it's true to them. It's obviously not true to us, but yeah, I hope that makes sense, because I don't know, it's hard to explain. But yeah, so it starts off with this dad talking to this little girl, and then he starts the story, and then it gets into the actual like book, if that makes sense. And yeah, it follows this guy named Dathan, who is a cousin to the next king or leader or whatever they call them, chancellors of this world that it's set on. And he is in the like Air Force, trying to be one of the best starfighter pilots they have, and he is kind of in constant competition with his cousin because they're the same age. and they both have a pretty strong competitive streak. But Dason, the guy that we follow, he is trying not to be so competitive because he knows it's affecting his relationship with his cousin Lyndon, and he wants to have a good relationship with his cousin because it's like the only brother he's ever had, kind of thing. And yeah, so there's a very delicate relationship there. It also is compounded by the fact that there is a girl in their like trio that fancies Dason, but Dason doesn't necessarily fancy her all that much, but Lyndon fancies the girl. And so yeah, Lyndon's kind of bitter about the fact that she likes Dason and not him and all the rest of it. And so it's a bit of a walking on eggshells relationship, and they have to be very careful with what they say and what they do to kind of keep their trio intact. Then Dason basically finds out some information about himself and his family and kind of the whole structure of this world, and about this people called the Raelians, or they call them something else, but I can't remember what it is, but it's like a derogatory term for them. And they are being mistreated, and he finds all of this out through this one girl who is a Raelian. And yeah, it's kind of their journey and where that goes from them, because he kind of fancies her and all of this stuff starts happening and it's a bit crazy. And yeah, it's a bit of a fight for truth and not necessarily equality, but just that, like, I guess almost racism, if that makes sense. Like, this one race of people are being treated badly because they don't want to conform to the rest of the society, because they just want to be their own people. And like, the people who are in charge see that as a threat, even though they're not under threat, if that makes sense. And so they're oppressing them. It does kind of remind you a bit of the whole Hebrews in Egypt situation. That's probably the best thing I can describe it as, where like the Hebrews weren't actually a threat to the Egyptians, but the Egyptians felt that way because there was just so many Hebrews, so they oppressed them instead. And so it's a bit of that kind of situation. But it's really, really good, and I do recommend it. I'd probably give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, maybe even a 5.5. I don't know. It will depend on where the rest of the series goes, but definitely recommend it if you like science fiction. I also am definitely putting The Sinking City on this list. I love this book. I love this book. I love this book. It is definitely in my top 10, I think, now. I don't know what it is about it, but it was just so good. This is by Christine Cohen, and I am so excited to go pick up her other book, The Winter King. I think that's what it's called, because this one was so good. This is her newest release, and I hope that she continues writing because she's very good at it. And I'm also lucky enough to have a signed copy because my bookstore happened to have some signed copies. So I'm very happy about that because it's the only signed book I have in my collection. And I'm absolutely thrilled because I love this book so much. It is definitely a 5 out of 5 for me. So what is it about? It follows a girl named Leona, and I'm probably going to butcher names here because I don't know if they're meant to have an accent or not, because it is set in Venice in like an almost an alternate history, I guess you'd say, because it is definitely historical, like it's in the past, but in this past there is magicians that can do real magic, and there is these other creatures that live in the sea that are kind of a threat to the people of Venice, because these underwater creatures, they're kind of humanoid, like they can speak and they can walk on two legs and all of that kind of thing, but they can't breathe on land for very long, and they are kind of threatening Venice and the city. So yeah, this follows Leona, who is the daughter of a nobleman, and she is a very interesting character. I really liked her. I liked her, like, I don't know, I guess her coverage and her just personality. She had a good personality. And she finds out on her 16th birthday that her father has sold her off to these monsters because the king of the monsters has basically figured out that his race is going to die out unless he does something. So he's planned to marry a noble woman and force her to have children with him to keep his kind of race going in like a hybrid version so that they can hopefully breathe on land and take over the city. So, yes, she is being basically sold off to this guy or this evil monster king, and she is absolutely horrified, as you would be, and she wants to try and get out of it, but obviously she can't necessarily. So what she does is she fakes her own death, and she can't leave Venice because she has a mark on her arm which is imbued with a spell that means that if she tries to leave Venice, the monsters will know where she is and they'll track her down and capture her. So she can't leave Venice, and so she decides to go be the magician apprentice for the kind of reclusive but most powerful magician in Venice called Mago Ree, and hopefully find a spell that will help remove this mark from her arm and break the spell so that she can flee Venice and be free. It is such an interesting story. There is also a bit of a love interest in this as well. There is some pretty cool magics and mechanics to this world. I really liked it. And I loved that it was set in Venice, and just, I don't know, I loved all of it. It was a great setting and a really good story. And I just love all of it. I don't want to say too much more just because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, because I liked the fact that I went into it blind. It made it so much better, I guess. So I'm not going to say too much more, but definitely go pick it up. It is definitely a 5 out of 5 stars, and I really, really can't wait for more books from this author because it'll be so good. I also recently read the 2 books in the Lightfall series. I loved this. This was such a like happy and quick read. They are little graphic novels and they are absolutely stunning. I love them. It is gorgeous. I can't wait to display these. This is a saga that is happening, and I'm so all about it. I absolutely love it. I can't wait for the next book to come out because I'm like partway through this story here and I need to know what happens. So we follow this girl who is adopted by this pig man magician, and he like she calls him her grandfather, and then she goes out into the woods one day to collect some ingredients for some spells for her grandfather, because her grandfather makes potions and sells them to people, like healing and all that kind of thing. And she goes to collect some ingredients, and she ends up falling out of a tree and being caught by this guy here who is a Galdarian, and he is an adventurer. He is the last of his kind, and he is trying to stop the evil from this world from taking over and getting rid of all of the light in the world. And she goes back to her little cottage to find her grandfather, and her grandfather has left a note to say that he's gone off to go check on this seal that he's meant to be protecting. But she gets very worried because her father has really bad memory loss, and so she's worried that he will be obviously a danger to himself because he won't necessarily remember where he's going or where he is. And so these two team up on an adventure to go find her grandfather and also complete this guy's mission by going and saving the light and all of the rest, because it turns out it's all intertwined. And yes, it's very good. It's beautiful to read. It is aimed at a younger audience. Like, it's definitely not a complicated adult graphic novel or anything. It's definitely like the middle grade kind of read, but it is so beautiful and so sweet that I just had to put it on here and recommend it to you guys if you are interested in anything like that, because it is beautiful and heartfelt and I love it, and I think everyone should have a copy. So that is the Lightfall series so far, and I hope that the next one is not too far from its release, because I am really intrigued as to where the story is going. I've also put the Dreamkeeper saga on here. I've only read the first book, and I don't think I will continue to buy the others, just because this is the one on the list that I was saying that is not super amazing. Like, for me, it's probably a 3.5, something like that, out of 5 stars. I didn't absolutely love it. There's definitely better things, in my opinion, out there, but I still think it's a great read for younger people. So this is, I believe, a middle grade, and I definitely think the way that it writes, it's appropriate for a middle grade, if that makes sense. Like, that is clearly who it's meant to be for, and I think that's why I didn't love it as much, just because, I don't know, the way that she writes, I think it's a bit possibly too simple for me, and I think that's why I didn't love it. So yeah, definitely great story. Like, the story was good. It's just I didn't love her writing very much, and I purely think that's just because I'm not the intended audience. So I definitely recommend it if you have like young teenagers, that kind of thing, because it was pretty cool. It was a really cool concept. I really liked it. It follows a young girl who, her father has passed away, and it's just her and her mum and her grandma, and her grandmother's quite sickly, and her mum is trying to keep this family afloat and is working extra shifts at the hospital to try and pay for them and everything. And the girl is getting bullied at school, and she gets kind of swept up in this adventure because a dragon comes into her house and is eating their food, and she tries to get the dragon to go away, and then she ends up getting attacked again at her school by this dragon, and she finds a pendant that is left from her father, and it is magical, and it causes the things from her dreams and her imagination to come true, and she ends up accidentally kidnapping the school bully, and they end up in this other realm, and yeah, it's just a whole adventure. So yeah, very good concept of a story, and I definitely do recommend it if you have younger kids. And finally, on the list for today, because these were all the books I read this week, so I will do another one of these Christian fiction videos once I read the rest in my TBR. But yeah, the next one and last one on the list for today is Mark of the Raven. I was skeptical when I saw this in another YouTuber's video. I will leave her as a link below. But I was skeptical because, I don't know, maybe it's just the way that, like, you have to explain this book. It didn't sound all that interesting to me. But I was like, she'd given it a 5 out of 5 stars. So I was like, okay, well, like, maybe it's just one of those books that's hard to explain. It was actually really good. So I took the chance and I bought the first one. Only the first one. I have now purchased the other 2 books in the series because it is a 5 out of 5 stars, definitely. And I'm very excited to see where this one goes. But I'm going to try and do my best to explain the story to you in a way that hopefully intrigues you, because it's definitely worth you picking it up and reading. So, The Mark of the Raven is the first book in the Ravenwood saga. This follows our main character, Lady Selene, and she is like, I think she's meant to be late teens, like maybe 18, 19, but I can't remember if it actually says in the book, but I think that's approximately her age. And she is the heir to the Ravenwood, I'm going to say throne, even though I don't know if they're technically thrones or not. But in this world, there is this evil empire, and then they are cut off, and then we have these 7 houses, and they each have their own leader called the Grand Lord or Grand Lady. And that's why I'm saying it's like a throne, but not a throne. And because she is the next in line to be the Grand Lady of one of these 7 houses. And the 7 houses all operate very independently because of some bad things that happened hundreds and hundreds of years prior. And they each have a special power. The Ravenwood power is dream walking or dream killing, where they can go, if they touch somebody while they're asleep, they can go into that person's dream, manipulate that dream in whatever way. So it can be for good or it can be for bad. They can like super encourage someone to go do something or inspire someone to go do something. Or on the opposite hand, they can cause someone to be so afraid that they actually die in their sleep. So that is like the gift of this one particular house. The other gifts are like light and healing and fire and water control and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we mostly follow the Ravenwood gift. And the mother in this is quite evil. She is not a good lady at all. But Lady Selene is trying to be good, and she like comes of age, and then a few years later she gets her gift, because at a certain point, like, it just randomly comes to you. And so she receives her gift, and her mother starts teaching her what they do with their gift, which in this case is assassinating people, because they receive contracts to go out and remove people that are a threat to whoever is paying them. And she's absolutely horrified to find out that this is what the gift of their family is used for, because she doesn't want to be evil or a killer or anything like that. She wants to be good. And she has a very, very strong battle within herself, because she feels that she has to be a killer like her mum to protect her sisters from having to do the same thing, and also to provide for her people, because if they aren't getting these contracts, they aren't getting money for the kingdom, and that means their people will starve. So she feels like she has to, and she's trapped in this position of having to do this evil, but she really doesn't want to, and it's this very internal struggle for her. She's also clearly seeking out God or some kind of higher being, because she was raised, like their house is raised by under the belief of the Dark Lady, who is not good, and she doesn't necessarily believe in her, doesn't want to believe in her, because she doesn't think that the teachings are right and real, and she's trying to search for this light and something that is just good. And yes, she ends up being tasked with a specific assassination that completely changes her, and she finds the light that she's kind of been looking for, and she has to kind of decide if she's going to chase after that and risk everything and forsake the family, or if she is going to kind of sacrifice herself and her wants for her kingdom and her sisters and everything else, and fulfill her duties. It's very interesting. It was so captivating. I loved every moment of it. I love it. I want to say more, but it would be a bit too spoilery, so I'll just leave it there. But I highly recommend it, and I absolutely cannot wait for the other books to arrive so I can get into reading them straight away. So that is everything I have to share for you today. This video ended up being much longer than I thought it would be, but that's all right. I know some of you guys enjoy the longer ones, so I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe because it really does help me out and help you to see more of my content. So yeah, I will see you in the next video, and I hope that you guys have a great week. Bye!